story.
The story? Is it a story about a little
Yeah,
filibuster?
we're gonna be riding a giant white dragon.
Jesus.
So, we've talked about this a couple times already, but
Mhm.
so the big vote finally came up, and it was shot down 52-48 of to change the filibuster rules,
Mhm.
and a lot of people are actually upset about this, which doesn't make sense. Why you would be upset about this? Um, but especially so there's two Democratic senators, uh, Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. They actually voted against it, and they were like the deciding votes. And now they're actually being attacked and dragged through the mud by their own party because
I think they got
they,
censored.
yeah, Krista Sinema was censored by her own Democratic Party in Arizona just
Mhm.
because she said no to pretty much kind of forcing. So getting rid of the filibuster would be one big thing, and it would make a majority rule. And so then that means minority voices mean nothing and have no say in anything. Whoever the minority is at the time.
Well, the only reason that they're doing that is because, I mean, Republicans have been using it maliciously. Maybe removing it completely isn't
No,
the answer. Maybe
there's
modifying the
there's
way
no,
you actually filibuster.
but there's no like modifying. Like it's simple. If it's a very invasive bill, you have to have 2/3. It's like I don't think having a super majority on certain items is a bad thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, minority voices should actually have a say, and our system is built in a way that the minority party at the time still has a say, and they don't have to just do as the majority wants all the time.
Mm-hmm. No, and I definitely agree with that.
And
You know, we shouldn't eliminate it, but we should at least modify exactly how it works so that opposing parties don't use it maliciously. Like, look at all of the previous 4 years with President Trump, where Democrats use it maliciously from time to time, and look at now, or times before that, where Republicans used it maliciously.
and so that was
Definitely.
one argument I've heard on the subject is that back in the 90s and 80s, right? It
Mm-hmm.
was there was unspoken rules. There was gentlemen's agreements, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the I would say probably since 2012, we've been very divisive and split. And so it's like we're doing everything we can to attack other people instead of working together. And Joe Manchin brings up this point. He's like, "Hey, if we're just gonna be attacking each other all the time, how can we expect to work together?"
Yeah,
Exactly.
totally agree.
Exactly. Like you were elected to do a job. And that job is to look at the whole picture, listen to what your people are saying, and try to come to some resolution for the good of your people. Like I honestly don't think that the filibuster should, be on the chopping block at all. It's a very important part in our democratic process. We have it in place for a reason, and you know, making it so okay, yeah, majority rules, like okay, I can see that some measures, okay, fine, but getting rid of that completely is not a process. We use it to slow down legislation. If we have time to review. I mean, look at the stimulus bill that they passed the first time around. That thing was a whole fucking novel, and they had what, like
Came
48
in on
hours to read it?
and it came in on a little red wagon because there was too many pages for people to carry.
Exactly. So like things like that are important to slow down so they have an idea what they're signing. Because how can you go home and tell your constituents like, "Oh, I didn't know what was in the bill because I had no way to, slow it down so we can look at it from a bipartisan effort and work together." I mean, in the last couple of years, how many times have you seen hands reach across the aisle? The only thing I can think about is Ted Cruz and AOC talking about term limits for Congress. That's the only thing I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, I mean, like Ted Cruz in his career, he doesn't have many sessions of Congress left. Like he has drives. He's ran for president. Um, he's actually been on the list to be nominated Supreme Court since like 2004. So, I mean,
Really?
I could, yeah, I mean, he is one of the top constitutional lawyers
Hmm.
in the
Yeah.
United States.
I didn't know that at all. Good for you,
Yeah, that's
Raphael.
what he studied. But I mean, so I mean, to give a little more context, what they were trying to do is they wanted to get rid of the filibuster rule because they were trying to pass their what they call a voting rights bill, and the way they've been presenting this bill is one of the reasons that these two senators vote against it, because this isn't really a voting rights bill, it's a restructuring of the voting system. So the way it's been presented and talked about has been kind of misleading. So if they're not comfortable with the bill, then why are they going to let it pass? And this was kind of the only way to stop it.
Yeah, I'm not okay
So
with
it
that.
was shot down. Is there any chance that it could come back up like as a topic of?
No, it was voted down. It was voted down. So that does help in that process, right?
Mhm.
But as the Democrats have been saying, hey, we're gonna so like the Build Back Better plan, they're decided that they're gonna break it apart and they're gonna rename the bills so that nobody knows what it is and they can vote. And I mean, just like getting rid of the filibuster is kind of dirty politics. There's been a lot of dirty politics going on both sides, right?
Mhm.
And like since the Democrats have took in 2018, they took over the House. They've put up a lot of bills that have really misleading names, which then people vote for. You know, like I said, the Patriot Act, right? We learned our lesson with the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act was one of the worst things that the American people ever let happen.
Mhm.
And
Totally agree.
yeah, and then you hear they keep talking about how because of the filibuster was voted down, we're gonna we're losing our voting rights. Well, I don't really see any of that happening. It doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, like I understand where they're coming at with that, because there have been some states like Georgia that has really limited how you can vote. Like there's one polling station per city in some
Well, no,
instances, and then
actually,
some
so
rural towns don't even have a voting station. They have to go to town
to put it
over.
into context, for Georgia specifically,
Mhm.
they did make the rule that you had to have at least one per ballot box per county, right?
Mhm.
Well, before they didn't have a rule at all. So like there wasn't even any, there was some counties that didn't have any. You had to go to the next county over.
Mhm.
So it's not like, again, it's not the perfect rule, but it was an improvement on the previous system.
Yeah.
And then again, for I mean, Biden himself has said it. A lot of the Democrats said it, that the 2020 election was the freest and fairest election, and that's why. And we had more votes in that election than any other election.
Yeah, we really did.
And but and that was good news to hear. So it makes it really hard for me to believe them when now they're saying if we don't pass this bill, the next election's illegitimate. And Biden said that himself.
Son of a bitch.
So, so there's really mixed messaging in all of this. The bill was really maliciously named, I believe, and it was named in a way to fool people who are looking for, better. Like, they say there's a lot of restrictions. Well, one restriction that everybody seems to be against that supports this bill is voter ID laws.
Mhm.
Well, we've had voter ID here in Texas, and I've never had an issue with it. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody has an ID, and you walk up, give them your ID, and they hand you your ballot. It's that easy.
Yeah.
And I mean, personally, I believe it's kind of racist if you believe voter ID is racist.
I don't think that that's racist, but I do like what New York did, or was it New York? Or was it California? One of the two states said that if you're not a legal resident and you pay your taxes or have some stipulation of the sort, you can vote.
Well, I could see that in local stuff, but
Mhm.
then again,
It was New
I
York. It was New
mean,
York City. There we go. Yeah, it was only local. It didn't expand
but
past
if
that.
you but if you remove the incentive to become citizens, then like hey, once you have a permanent root here, then you get to vote. I think that's a good.
Yeah.
Now, now should we look at how we make people citizens and like, hey, if you've been living here for 20 years and you have your residency, then yeah, you should have a loophole to where you should be able to vote, right? But if you're a new immigrant and you just moved here 2 months ago, you don't have the knowledge or the information to make an informed vote. You're more likely just going to vote whoever told you to go vote. So that's I don't know. That's a real gray area, right?
Mhm. I can see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like someone who has like established residency that has contributed so far. Like I feel like that pathway is more attainable and easily. Like I think both sides could agree than somebody who's brand new automatically being made a citizen right off the cuff.
Like,
Eh,
what's so wrong with that? Once you're made a citizen, you're already contributing to the economy. You're paying your taxes, and completely eliminating immigration, like Japan did, is only gonna plummet the dollar.
Yeah,
That's why the Japanese yen is so low. Go
but
ahead.
like Ethan was saying that like that incentive for citizenship, like
Hmm.
I don't know, like personally, I think like our Pledge of Allegiance is really creepy and weird, but like being a citizen is something different, like you're part of the country, like you're all in and you're invested. I don't know if that makes sense or if that's like creepy patriotism's creeping in again.
No, no, I
well,
think
I
that
mean,
that's a
but
good point.
patriotism is not always bad, right? Like having pride in you and your community is not a bad thing, right? Like we're
Yeah,
proud to be Texans, right?
Yeah,
We're patriots of Texas most of the time, right?
like have.
over
So
the
I
US, yes.
yeah. So I mean, but then again, like it comes back to what we were talking, where we started. The US has problems and it has issues. But if we're always in a negative and we're always just judging the other side and talking shit about the other side, how are we ever going to, shake hands and come up with a better solution?
Yeah, it's tattooed on my back. Can't shake hands with a clenched fist.
But you can slap someone.
With an open fist.
Ow. Just kidding.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think the filibuster rule. So, one thing to remember about with the filibuster rule also is, what's Newton's third law, right?
Mhm.
Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if Democrats uh, got rid of the filibuster just so they can impose their rule on the minority party, then what's going to stop the Republicans from imposing their rule over the minority party when the Democrats become the minority, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a cycle. They take turns.
It's like gerrymandering. They all take turns fucking up all the voting regions. And Dan Patrick from YouTube says, "Okay, who here poops?" I think we all do.
Totally poop.
Ethan
Yeah.
doesn't poop.
I don't, yeah. It's the whole gerrymandering thing. I mean, yeah. Sometimes it's shitty, but there's other things that go into it than just people trying to be, you know, keep others down.
Let a non-subjective third party just draw out all the maps. Okay, it's
Hey, but
Georgia
then
is the
again,
worst one, and so is North Carolina.
right? You can't blame the people that have the power at state levels for using their power when they see how the federal government is using their power, right?
That's why we need anyone over the legal the legal retirement age should no longer be in office. Like, just stop.
Yeah.
You're no longer representing the majority. You're only representing the minority. And if we need to have some people that are older in Congress to represent the minority, then I'm fine with that. But how is over 80% of our government above the age of 50?
Because Gen Z or Gen Xers don't want to do anything.
Thanks, Gen X.
Well, that wraps up another great episode. And don't forget to join our amazing and supportive community on Discord.
In our Discord, you can find game nights, watch parties, food picks, Dungeons and Dragons, and more. What's not to love about that? We have a little something for everyone. Head over to our website, officialmillennials.com, and you'll find more info, especially our featured gamer of the week.
Speaking of something for everyone, we have a book club. We read a book almost every month and talk through it together. We also have a special perk for our subs to discuss other books in a series called Chapter 2.
Don't forget to swing by YouTube and drop us a follow at Official Millennials. You can also find us on Twitter at MillsOfficial. We appreciate all the support, and y'all have a good one.
This is an Official Millennials production.